Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tony Holowitz from the John Anthony Group, and I want to thank you for attending our PowerPoint 2 training class. I want to talk to you a little bit about how we do these second level training classes for the on-demand section. What we've done with the Level 2 classes is we've made a decision, instead of making it a long class, like an hour-long class, we have actually broken these classes down into little segments. And the reason we've done that is because we want to make it easy for you to come in and look at different parts of the training, and also because they're smaller segments, you can come back in and review them as you see fit. So today, PowerPoint 2, the first part of our PowerPoint 2 training, or part 1, is about shapes. Before I go into talking about shapes and working with PowerPoint, there's something I want to address when thinking about this second class from your point of view and from my point of view. I think the most difficulty in designing a second class is once you get past the fundamentals, which our first class in PowerPoint is designed to do, we're always confronted with, okay, which direction do we head in next? A dilemma I have, especially with PowerPoint, is you will be better at PowerPoint if you are well-rounded in a lot of different areas. For example, if you're used to working with graphics, things like pictures, clip art, things of that nature, a lot of the things you've learned prior to this class will play into some of the things you can do with this class. Also, things you've done in Word and Excel can also carry over to this class. So the difficulty for me when devising the PowerPoint 2 class was, what do I focus on? And what I've sort of decided on is I'm going to get into a lot of the little things you can do in PowerPoint, but as I go into them, I'm going to address certain fundamentals that you'll be better off knowing as you work within PowerPoint. To start with, we are going to get into shapes. And within those shapes, you're going to learn a lot about manipulating the shapes and how to take those shapes to a higher level. So to start, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the escape key on my keyboard, because what you're seeing on the screen is actually a presentation for PowerPoint. So I'm going to hit escape, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually add a new slide. And I'm going to come up here to the top left right under File, and I'm going to go click on the slide, and on the right hand side I'm going to add a new slide, and I'm adding that as primarily a new slideshow. I'm going to make it just a blank slide because now we're going to come in and we're going to work with shapes. I want to draw your attention down to the bottom left hand side of the screen. Down here it says Auto Shapes. First I'm going to come up and click the slide layout option over here on the right, but I'm going to come down to Auto Shapes and I'm going to click on the drop down arrow right here. We have many different types of shapes to choose from. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to come up and choose arrows, or an arrow, and I'm going to click on that. When I do that, I'm going to click in the top left hand corner of what you see on the screen and drag down to the bottom right, and I've had an arrow pop up on the screen. Now, when I have an arrow, or for that matter any object like clip art or artwork, I have this arrow that's surrounded by some dots. On each corner you're seeing a dot, on each side you're seeing a dot. So we have 8 of them all together. For example, down here at the bottom, up here on the top right corner. Now, if I want to take this object or this arrow and make it smaller or bigger, I can grab the arrow key on any of the corners and either drag in or drag out. So if I drag in, it makes it smaller. And when I drag it in from the corners, it keeps the proportions. In other words, as it makes it shorter, it makes it not as wide. If I grab things from the side and drag in, then it doesn't keep the proportions. See how I'm getting a real skinny arrow now? That's because I did not keep the proportions. I'm going to go up on the toolbar and I'm going to click on Undo. And I'm going to undo twice. If you notice, at the top of this arrow we have a green circle. That green circle, if I click on it and then move my pointer to the left or to the right, it allows me to move this arrow around. So I can, in essence, take it and point it in another direction. If you see, and this you won't see on all shapes, but if you see a little yellow arrow or square such as this, what this allows you to do is to resize the shape of the arrow. So I just dragged it in and dragged it out. What you need to do when working with shapes is just frankly get in and start messing around with them. You've got to explore, you've got to have some fun. You should do this before you're at the point where you're trying to do a presentation. Because if you wait till the last minute, frankly, that's when you're going to run into some problems, because you're going to be confronted with trying to learn all of that information very quickly, and then trying to figure out how do I work it in. In the first PowerPoint class, one of the things I talk about is sort of doing a layout and thinking of your presentation somewhat like a movie where you have scenes. And what you want to do is think through the scenes, think through what you want to have in that presentation. And then once you've sort of got the content down, you say, okay, what kind of artwork do I want to have in there? Do I want to have certain pictures? Do I want to have arrows? What is it I want to have? So I'm going to come back up on the screen and I'm going to click on this arrow, and now what I'm going to do is somewhere on the body of it I'm just going to simply double click. And when I do that, the Format Auto Shape box pops up, and this now allows me to change the way this particular arrow looks as far as colors and lines and things of that nature. I'm going to come up here to this drop down. I'm going to choose a drop down, and I'm just going to choose another color. I'm going to choose orange. Now also down below I have a line color. Right now we have a black line going around it, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this drop down and I'm going to choose a line of a different color. Let's make it maybe a blue. What kind of line do we want? Do we want to have a dash line? Do we have dots? What is it we want? I'm just going to choose this. I'm going to come over here to the right, and where it says weight, I can go down and choose a different weight so I can make it thicker. If I want to change it even more, I can do it right here using the weight up and down arrow, and I can make this thicker or narrower. If I wanted all my objects to have this basic look and feel, I could click on Default for New Objects. I'm not going to do that, but what I'm going to do is click on OK, and now we're going to see how it impacts the arrow. So now once we have that arrow, what I'm going to do is, just to illustrate a point, I'm going to make this arrow a little bit smaller. Now that I've made the arrow smaller, I'm going to click on it, and it's already selected actually. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and there's a couple different ways you can copy it. I can go up to the toolbar. I can also go up to Edit, Copy. And you'll notice to the left of the word copy I have two little sheets of paper and Control C over to the right of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on this. Control C is the keyboard shortcut. And now, in essence, I've copied that. But now what I'm going to do is do Control V to paste what I've just copied. And what has occurred is I have a new arrow on top of the old, and I can drag that elsewhere. I can paste again if I so desire, and I have another one, and again, so that I've created a number of arrows that all look the same. Okay. I'm going to go up and I'm going to click on Undo, because I don't want to work with all these arrows. I just want to work with one. Now what I can do is, with this particular item, I can come down and click on Draw, and I can do a number of different things with this. For example, if you're working with a lot of objects and you want to try to get it to look a certain way or get it aligned a certain way, I can add a grid and guidelines. So if I want to display things on a grid, and if I want objects to snap to a grid, again, I'm not going to go into great detail here, with the exception of saying if you want to see a grid on the screen, you can change it right here. I'm going to click OK, and you'll see what I'm referring to. If you want to nudge this object, in other words, if you want to move it to the right, up, down, left, you can come into where it says Draw, and then go Nudge, and go up or down. But what I also want to draw your attention to is I personally would never use this. What I would do is I would just simply, after clicking on the object to select it, I'd use the arrow keys on my keyboard. Let me select that again. The arrow keys on my keyboard to go up or down, or right or left. So that's in essence another way to nudge it. But probably the most common reason you'd want to come over to this draw area after creating a shape is because what you might want to do is you might want to change the auto shape to something else. So say you had done all the work, but you realized, geez, I really don't want to use an arrow, or I don't want to use that arrow. I want to use one of these other types of arrows. Well, what I'm going to do is click on this type, and you'll see it keeps all the look and feel, but it changed the way it looks, or the type of shape that you've chosen. So now what I'm going to do is on my toolbar down here below, I'm going to come all the way down to the right hand side, and you'll notice we have a couple options. We have a 3D style, which is at the far end, and we also have a shadow style. I'm going to click on shadow style, and I'm just going to choose any random shadow, and now I've added a shadow to the shape. If I come back down to the bottom and I choose 3D, what I can now do is I can come in and choose a 3D shape, just like that. And now it looks different, more of a 3D format. It took away some of my formatting, but I can change the way it looks. I'm going to click on this item. I'm going to hit delete to delete it off my screen, and I'm going to come back down to the Auto Shape toolbar. Down here we have a couple things, or quite a few things we can work with. I'm going to illustrate by using the arrow line. This is just a straight line option. This is an arrow line. By clicking on that, now I can draw an arrow like that. If I come up and click on undo, I'll take that away. I'm going to come back down on the toolbar, and I have a rectangle shape, and I also have an oval shape. I'm going to click on oval. I'm going to come up and draw. And now I've taken this oval and I've changed, or I've drawn an oval on the screen. Again, if I want to get into the look of this, I can double click on it, and up will come the dimensions so I can change the colors. I'm going to change this one to orange, and I'm going to go OK. I could have looked at a preview, I just chose not to. I'm going to come back down and click on the rectangle, and I'm going to draw a rectangle right on top of it. I'm going to double click on this, and I'm going to change the colors of this item. I'm going to change it to something a little bit lighter, another sort of orange yellow, and click OK. Now you'll notice I have the square on top of the circle, but if I right click on the square, what I can do is I can come down to the option that says order, and I can say, you know what, let's send the square to the back. In other words, it's going to be behind the oval. And there we go. Sometimes if you want to move something around, you just simply click on it and you can drag it around the screen with your mouse or your pointer. But sometimes you might want to take two objects that are very similar, or they're meant to be together, and what you can actually do is by clicking on one, holding the shift key down and clicking on the other because they're aligned or touching, I can now right click and go down to grouping and choose group. And now what it's done, it's combined these together as in essence one shape. As goes one, goes the other. If I resize one, I resize the other. So there's a lot of things you can do with these shapes. Takes a lot of time to just, not a lot of time, but you should take some time to go in and practice before you actually have to use these things. I'm going to click delete to get rid of those. I'm going to come back down to my toolbar, and you're going to see I can also insert clip art. I'm going to click on this, and what I can do with clip art is a number of different things. When I click on clip art, I can go online to Microsoft Office's website, Clip Art Office Online, and choose different types of images from there. They have a whole variety of images that you can choose from. I'm not going to go there right now, but I just want you to be aware of that is an option. All kinds of free images you can use. They're not for resale, but you can go in and use them for your own options. You might also have some clip art on your screen. I'm going to close this clip art dialog box down on the right. I'm going to go back down to the bottom, and I'm going to come over to the right where it says insert picture, and I'm going to click on that. And now what we can do is we can insert a picture. Working with pictures is very much like working with any of the items that we had done before with shapes. I'm just going to take this picture right here of John F. Kennedy and click on insert. And again, we can manipulate this image by coming up and dragging things by the corners or by the sides. We can also do some more things, because when we work on pictures, the picture toolbar should show up. If for any reason it doesn't show up, you can go up to View, go down to Toolbars, and over on the right is a list of all kinds of different toolbars that are available to you. So for any reason you don't have the AutoShape toolbar, you can go up and click on it and work within that drop-down list to bring that up on the screen. So images work pretty much the same way as shape, except you have some more options over here on the left. I'm not going to go into that in great detail because I spend more time in Microsoft Word going into that. So we recommend taking the Microsoft Word class on the Word 1 class. At the end, we get into it just briefly. In the Word 2 class, we get into it a little bit more. And that's where we deal with these images. And this goes back to my saying where you have to be good at a number of little things to really make PowerPoint effective. So that's what it is to work with shapes. I'm going to click on the X. Actually, I'm going to click on the photo and I'm just going to delete it. I'm going to come back down here, and the last thing I want to show you, actually two things I want to show you. I want to show you something called Word Art. And Word Art is a very quick way to just add a quick graphic to any of the things you work on. I'm just going to choose over here the orange. I'm going to click OK. And again, you could have chosen any one of those. You can type in anything you want at this point. Tony Holowitz is what I'm going to put in there. I can change the font style. Let's go down and make it just something different. I can change the size. I can make it bigger. I can make it smaller. So we'll make it real big. I'm going to click OK. And now we have clip art inserted in our document. Again, you'll notice we have all the lines and arrows all the way around it. So not lines, but we have the circles on the corners and the circles on the side. So again, we can go in and work with that. We can manipulate it. So I think when you're working with shapes, if you do start to use shapes and get better at shapes, everything else is going to be easier. You're going to have an easier time working with things such as graphics. You're going to have an easier time working with pictures because a lot of the same principles apply on either one of these. So it's a good thing to know about. What we're going to do in a separate tutorial is down here we have something called diagrams or organizational charts. I'm going to click on this real quick just to illustrate a point. But here is a diagram or an organizational chart. I'm going to click OK. And now we have an organizational chart put in on top of my Word Art. I'm not going to get into this in this class. This will be a separate tutorial, but that's another thing you might want to explore because it's all part of the same concept of working with shapes. I want to thank you for being here in part 1 of our PowerPoint 2 class, and I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you got some things out of it. Again, the key here is to go in and practice before you actually start needing before you start needing to work with shapes. Get in and practice, so then when you do a presentation, you're ready to go with it. Thank you very much. Have a great day.